Loneliness is a word that carries weight, often whispered with sadness, wrapped in assumptions of despair. Yet loneliness and emptiness are not the same. To sit alone does not always mean to feel hollow. Solitude, when embraced, becomes a space of transformation, a sanctuary where growth takes root. It is not a punishment, but an invitation to meet the self without distraction, without the noise of the world's endless expectations. In solitude, the mind settles. The endless chatter of external voices fades, and suddenly, you can hear your own thoughts clearly. For many, this silence is uncomfortable, even frightening, because it forces them to face truths long ignored. But in that very confrontation lies the beginning of growth. When you allow yourself to sit in solitude, you learn what you truly desire, what you value, and what you can no longer carry. It is in those moments of quiet that clarity forms, guiding you toward decisions that are rooted not in pressure, but in authenticity. People often confuse solitude with rejection, but there is a profound difference. Loneliness is the ache of missing connection. Solitude is the choice to step away so that you can reconnect with yourself. Where loneliness depletes, solitude replenishes. In solitude, you can create, dream, and plan without interference. You can rebuild what was broken, not for the applause of others, but for the peace of your own heart. Consider the seed that is buried in darkness. To an outsider, it looks isolated, cut off from the world. Yet, within that soil, the seed is preparing, gathering strength, sending roots deeper so that when the time comes, it rises strong and unshaken. Solitude works in the same way. What feels like separation is often preparation. The quiet seasons of life are not wasted. They are where resilience is born. Growth requires space, and solitude offers that space. When you are surrounded constantly by others, by conversations, by distractions, your own voice is drowned out. You live responding to external demands rather than internal truth. But in solitude, you reclaim the ability to hear yourself. You begin to notice patterns. What lifts you, what drains you, what inspires you. That awareness becomes the foundation of change. Without solitude, you risk living a life that belongs to everyone else but you. There is also power in learning to be content with your own company. When you can sit with yourself without needing constant validation or distraction, you discover an inner strength that cannot be taken away. You no longer fear abandonment because you are no longer abandoned by yourself. You no longer fear silence because you have learned to find meaning in it. This does not mean rejecting others. It means that your well-being no longer depends on their presence. You carry your own wholeness with you. Solitude also nurtures creativity and vision. History is filled with examples of thinkers, writers, and leaders who found their greatest ideas not in the crowd, but in moments of isolation. When the noise of the world is set aside, the imagination is free to wander, to build, to innovate. Solitude is not just an emotional necessity, but a creative one. It gives birth to insights that cannot survive in chaos. Most importantly, solitude shifts your relationship with yourself. Instead of fearing time alone, you begin to value it as sacred. Instead of feeling left behind, you see yourself as moving inward, preparing for what is ahead. The emptiness people associate with being alone transforms into fullness, full of self-knowledge, full of resilience, full of direction. Solitude becomes less of a void and more of a vessel, carrying you toward growth that cannot happen in the presence of constant noise. Self-respect is the foundation upon which true strength is built, yet it is often the very thing sacrificed in the pursuit of social approval. From an early age, women are taught that their value is reflected in how well they are liked, how many friends they have, how warmly they are accepted into social circles. The pressure to belong is powerful, and for many, it leads to compromises that quietly erode the core of self-worth. But there are women who make a different choice. A woman with no friends is not necessarily friendless. She is often a woman who has decided that her dignity cannot be traded for shallow company or temporary validation. This decision can be misunderstood. To the outside world, it might appear that she is isolated or unwanted, when in reality she has simply chosen not to dilute her essence for the sake of being tolerated. She understands that approval earned by shrinking herself, silencing her truth, or pretending to be someone she is not approval at all, it is performance. And performances are exhausting. They demand you wear masks, suppress feelings, and laugh at words that wound your spirit. For her, this is too high a price. Self-respect teaches her that solitude is a kinder companion than relationships that require her to abandon herself. She knows the sting of being left out, but she also knows the deeper wound of being surrounded by people who do not truly see her. She understands that applause from the wrong audience can feel comforting for a moment, but leaves her emptier than before. Rather than chase after acceptance, she chooses alignment with her values, even if it costs her numbers in her contact list. There is a quiet courage in living this way. The world rewards conformity, not authenticity. It is easier to blend in, to say yes when you want to say no, to agree when you know you should stand firm. But she has realized that peace built on self-betrayal does not last. She would rather face the discomfort of solitude than the deeper ache of self-disrespect. And so she walks alone, not as a victim of abandonment, but as a guardian of her own worth. This path also demands clarity about the nature of relationships. Not everyone who calls themselves a friend is truly a friend. Some come only when they need, some applaud only when it benefits them, and some resent the very light you carry. To keep such people close simply for the comfort of saying you have friends is to live in illusion. She has chosen truth instead. Even if truth means having fewer people around, it ensures that the connections she does hold are genuine. Self-respect also changes how she measures herself. While others may tally their value by the size of their social circle, she measures by integrity, by how faithfully she stands by her principles when no one is watching. The likes on her photos, the invitations to gatherings, the compliments thrown in passing, none of these define her anymore. What defines her is the mirror she looks into at night, the question of whether she honored her spirit that day. That standard cannot be replaced by social validation. By choosing self-respect over social approval, she builds an unshakable foundation. Trends shift, opinions change, and people drift away, but self-respect is constant. It anchors her when storms come, it reminds her of her own worth when the world tries to diminish her, and it gives her the strength to say no when saying yes would mean losing herself. She is not without friends, she is without compromises. She is not unloved, she is simply unwilling to exchange love for convenience. She has chosen depth over numbers, truth over illusion, and dignity over applause. Silence is often misunderstood as emptiness, weakness, or avoidance. Yet silence can be one of the greatest sources of strength a person can ever experience. To sit in silence, especially when the world around you is loud and demanding, requires a courage many do not recognize. Sometimes isolation is not punishment but preparation, a hidden ground where inner power is trained and refined. In silence, distractions fall away, masks are removed, and the raw truth of who you are rises to the surface. That truth is not always easy to face, but is always the seed of strength. Isolation creates a space where there is no one else to lean on, no one else to distract, and no one else to carry the burden of your choices. It is in those moments that you discover what you are truly capable of. When there is no hand to hold, you learn how to steady yourself. When there is no voice to guide you, you learn how to trust your intuition. When there is no crowd to reassure you, you learn how to stand tall in your own conviction. This kind of power cannot be borrowed from others, it can only be built in silence. Silence teaches endurance. In a noisy world filled with opinions, judgments, and expectations, stepping into quiet feels unnatural at first. The stillness confronts you with every fear, every insecurity, and every doubt. But as you sit with those feelings, something begins to shift. You realize that emotions lose their control when faced instead of avoided. You realize that storms pass and you are still standing. Silence shows you that you can survive discomfort, and more importantly, that you can grow from it. Endurance becomes strength, and strength becomes resilience. Isolation also strips away illusions. When surrounded by people, it is easy to confuse their energy with your own, their values with your own, their dreams with your own. In silence, those illusions fade. You begin to see clearly what belongs to you and what was borrowed. You rediscover passions that may have been buried under noise. You begin to listen more deeply to the voice inside that has been drowned out by others. What emerges is authenticity, the kind of power that comes from living in alignment with your true self. There is a discipline in choosing silence when noise is available. It requires the strength to say no to distractions, to resist the comfort of empty company, to embrace the vulnerability of being with yourself. This discipline is like training the mind and spirit. Just as muscles grow under resistance, the spirit grows under solitude. Every hour of silence becomes a form of practice, strengthening the ability to remain calm under pressure, focused amid chaos, and centered when the world pushes for reaction. In silence, you also learn to value your words. When you are not constantly speaking, you realize the weight of what you choose to say. You begin to speak less, but with more depth. You choose words that carry meaning rather than fill space. This restraint becomes another form of strength, for true power is not in how loudly you speak, but in how deeply your words are felt. Silence sharpens this ability, making you more intentional and more impactful. Perhaps the most profound gift of silence is peace. Power built in isolation is not frantic or aggressive, it is calm, steady, and unshakable. It is the kind of strength that does not need to prove itself because it has already been tested in the quiet. It does not need applause because it has already learned to stand without it. This peace becomes armor, protecting you from the noise of the world. It is a strength that no one can give you and no one can take away, forged only in the stillness of silence. Not everyone is meant to walk beside you, and not everyone deserves the privilege of access to your heart, your time, or your spirit. One of the hardest lessons to learn is that protecting your energy often requires closing doors, setting boundaries, and walking away from those who drain more than they give. It is not cruelty, and it is not arrogance, it is wisdom. Protecting your energy is an act of self-preservation, and though it may sometimes leave you walking alone, it never leaves you empty. What you keep for yourself, what you save from being wasted on those who do not value it, becomes the very fuel that strengthens you from within. Access to your life is a gift, not a guarantee. Too often, people assume they are entitled to your presence simply because they want it. But entitlement is not the same as deserving. Just because someone asks for your time does not mean they have earned it. Just because someone desires your loyalty does not mean they respect it. When you recognize this, you begin to understand that you are the guardian of your own energy, And every decision you make about who enters your space shapes the life you are building. Walking alone becomes necessary when the company around you starts to weigh you down. The wrong people can pull you into patterns of gossip, negativity, and self-doubt. They can make you question your worth, limit your vision, and drain the joy out of your days. It takes courage to step away from that, especially when the alternative is solitude. But solitude, when chosen, is never truly empty. It is a clearing, a fresh space where healing and growth can happen without interference. By protecting your energy, you create an environment where your own voice grows louder than the noise of others. There is strength in recognizing that not everyone deserves to sit at your table. Some people come only to take, never to give. Some disguise envy as friendship, pulling you down so you will not rise higher than them. Others demand endless attention but vanish when you need support. Allowing such people constant access is like leaving the doors of your home unlocked. Eventually, something valuable will be stolen. Guarding your energy is locking that door, choosing carefully who is welcome, and understanding that not every knock deserves to be answered. This protection does not mean living without love or connection. It means learning the difference between real nourishment and empty consumption. The right people will add to your life, not subtract from it. They will respect your boundaries instead of testing them, celebrate your growth instead of resenting it, and stand with you in storms instead of disappearing when the skies darken. Until those people arrive, walking alone keeps your spirit intact and your energy uncorrupted. Protecting your energy also means protecting your future. Every time you waste energy on those who do not deserve it, you take energy away from the dreams you could be building, the peace you could be creating, the self you could be becoming. Every yes to the wrong person is a no to yourself. Learning to say no, even if it means disappointing others, is the highest form of self-respect. It is a declaration that your time and spirit are valuable, and you will not spend them recklessly. Aloneness in this context becomes empowerment. Instead of being scattered and drained, you become centered and full. Instead of chasing validation from those who misuse your presence, you discover fulfillment in your own alignment. Walking alone is not emptiness. It is choosing to carry yourself with dignity until you meet those who can walk beside you with the same respect you give yourself. In that choice, you never lose. You only protect the sacred fire of your own energy. Isolation is often feared because it strips away the comfort of company, yet within that stripping lies an opportunity for transformation. When you are left alone, when the noise of others fades, and the usual safety net is no longer there, you are forced to discover what you are made of. At first, isolation can feel heavy, like a void pressing in on every side. But if you choose to endure it, if you choose to lean into the quiet instead of running from it, isolation slowly reshapes itself into independence. True independence is not about living without people. It is about learning to remain unshaken even when the crowd is absent. Isolation tests you in ways that company never does. With no one to consult, you must learn to trust your own judgment. With no one to lean on, you must build the strength to carry yourself. With no applause to validate you, you must learn to value your progress by your own measure. These trials, though uncomfortable, are what transform dependency into resilience. They take away the false security of relying too much on others and replace it with the unshakable foundation of self-trust. Once you know you can survive in isolation, you are no longer enslaved by the fear of being left alone. That freedom is the essence of independence. When you rely on crowds, your strength is conditional. It rises and falls with the approval of others. You are confident when they support you, doubtful when they criticize you, and broken when they abandon you. But when you learn to stand alone, your strength is unconditional. It does not vanish with disapproval, it does not waver with absence, and it does not shatter with rejection. Independence built from isolation is like a tree whose roots reach deep into the ground. It may bend under storms, but it will not break. There is also a clarity that comes from being alone. Crowds carry noise, and noise often clouds judgment. In isolation, you begin to see yourself in the world with sharper vision. You notice what truly matters, what you can live without, and what you will no longer tolerate. This clarity is power, because it means you are no longer swayed by every passing opinion or trend. You can choose your path with certainty, not because others agree, but because you know it is aligned with who you are. That kind of conviction is rare, and it can only be forged in solitude. Independence is not about rejecting relationships. It is about no longer being defined by them. A person who has built independence from isolation can welcome others into their life without fear of losing themselves. They can love deeply without clinging, they can give without resentment, and they can walk away when necessary without collapsing. This balance makes connections healthier because they are rooted in choice, not in desperation. The ability to stand alone ensures that every relationship becomes a complement to life, not a crutch for survival. From isolation to independence is a journey of transformation that few willingly take. But those who do discover a freedom many never taste. They become unshakable not because they never fall, but because they know they can rise without being carried. They become fearless not because they never face abandonment, but because abandonment no longer holds power over them. They become whole not because they are surrounded, but because they have discovered that wholeness was always within. When isolation teaches you how to survive, independence teaches you how to thrive. And in that thriving, you find a strength that no crowd could ever give. Richness is often defined by what we can count: money, possessions, friends, followers, achievements. But there exists a different kind of richness, one that cannot be measured in numbers or displayed on a surface. Friendships are valuable, yes, but peace of mind and self-trust are priceless. To live in harmony with yourself, to wake up without a war raging in your chest, to trust the choices you make without endless doubt, these are treasures far greater than the approval of a crowd or the comfort of constant company. Friendships provide joy, connection, and shared experiences, and they can be one of life's sweetest gifts. But not every friendship is pure, and not every bond sustains the soul. Some relationships become distractions, some demand compromises, and some subtly chip away at your identity. A woman who has learned the value of peace of mind understands that she cannot buy tranquility at the cost of her spirit. She knows that no amount of company can replace the serenity of being at ease with herself. In choosing peace, she may lose certain people, but she gains something deeper, an inner wealth that no one can take. Peace of mind is a form of abundance that cannot be borrowed or bought. It is earned through the courage to let go of what harms you, the discipline to silence unnecessary noise, and the wisdom to stand firm in your truth. To rest at night without rehearsing regrets, to live a day without performing for others, to breathe without the weight of someone else's expectations, that is richness. When the mind is quiet and steady, you no longer live in reaction to the world. You live from a place of grounded strength. Self-trust is equally priceless, for it turns solitude into empowerment rather than fear. To trust yourself means to believe in your ability to choose, to navigate, to rebuild if necessary. Without self-trust, you are always leaning on others, seeking advice, chasing confirmation, afraid of making mistakes. With self-trust, even mistakes become teachers instead of disasters. You stop waiting for others to validate your path and instead walk it with confidence. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the quiet assurance that you can handle what comes, that you are enough without external proof. When peace of mind and self-trust are present, relationships transform as well. Friendships no longer serve as lifelines. They become additions, not necessities. You can love without clinging, connect without losing yourself, and give without resentment. You no longer fear the absence of people because you are not empty without them. This independence creates a different quality of bond, one built not on need but on choice. Those who remain in your life are there because they respect your boundaries, not because you sacrifice them. The richness of peace and self-trust also outlasts the shifting nature of life. Friends may move away. Circumstances may change, seasons of loneliness may come, but your inner wealth stays. It is the one possession that cannot be stolen, the one treasure that grows stronger the more you guard it. It gives you stability in chaos, clarity in confusion, and hope in despair. Others may measure success in recognition and applause, but true success is measured in how deeply at home you feel within yourself. This kind of richness does not glitter on the outside. It cannot be flaunted, photographed, or displayed for likes. It shows itself quietly in the way you carry yourself, in the calm that follows you, in the decisions you make without fear. Friendships may add joy and color to life, but peace of mind and self-trust build the foundation upon which joy can last. Without them, even the fullest social life feels hollow. With them, even solitude feels full.